He did say on our phone conversation he was having some internet issues, which I was on with Spectrum for a while today.
All right. Did Ted ever unmute himself? Did he have a comment?
Not that I'm aware of. And Councilmember Andert, if you didn't hear us, happy anniversary.
Thank you. Actually, I didn't hear. I had something wrong with my speakers, but thanks. It's number 18.
Woohoo!
Wow.
Happy
Congrats.
anniversary.
Good that you could spend it with us.
Mhm.
How you keep the romance alive.
What a gift.
Yeah, well, we also went and looked at upholstery fabric today, so you know, it's been a big, huge day.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Sounds like the 18. Upholstery and meetings.
Yep.
What do you get for 18 years? Like tires, right?
Tires.
Tires.
Yep, and a budget.
Yeah.
And maybe some new upholstery. All right, I'll tell you what. It's not for the boat, probably.
Vacuum cleaner.
Well, actually, we did look at vinyl for the boat too. We might.
There you go. You saved it. See, that's why you've got 19 in you for sure. All right, I'll tell you what. Let's we'll go ahead and get started. I'll give Councilperson Sapp another opportunity to join us as we get rolling here. We'll go ahead and call together our call to order our August 3rd, 2020 budget workshop. We appreciate everybody being here. Let's go ahead and start with our agenda. We'll go ahead and since we just have a few of us, I certainly don't want to be disrespectful to the pledge, but I often feel like the virtual pledge. Well, Bill, you went to the trouble of having the flag, so we'll go ahead and do our pledge. Let's do that. Good job, Scott.
How about if one person say the pledge while we all listen?
All right, that's good. All right, Councilman McKinley, will you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. If you'll join me for invocation. Father, as always, we pray for your guidance and knowledge and support in all the work that we do as we make decisions for our community, we make decisions for our neighbors, help and guide us, and make those decisions with pure heart, pure mind, and in the best interest of all. We certainly pray for our town, especially this week, based upon our tragedy that we had occur. We bless the family, we bless those neighbors, we bless all those people that know those individuals, and we wish them peace as they heal and hopefully begin to return to their lives. We also remain mindful of the stress and toll that takes on all of our first responders, and we pray for the safety and keeping of all of those who serve us and protect us day and night around the world. Amen. We will go ahead and double check to make sure that we have no public comment. We have no one that has signed up previous to the meeting for public comment. Do we have anyone on the call today that would like to offer public comment for our budget? All right.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Okay. Obviously, there'll be the opportunity. We'll check back to make sure. So at this point in time, we would like to go ahead with our special presentations tonight. Town Manager Smith will provide our FY 2021 budget presentation.
Okay, and for the record, Chris Sapp is joining us right now. First of all, I'd like to thank Nora White, Dorothy Burkhalter, Lillian, Debbie, all the staff on their help and assistance with this, and also the council liaison, Councilmember Williams. You know, with everything that's going on, I think a lot of us that have been on, or a lot of you that have been on terms longer than 2 years, you've seen that these things go pretty smoothly, and it's not just a one-man show. It's an entire team. I want to thank them very much for getting all the information to me. Again, with every budget year, we are faced with some issues, but always we have the same mission, which is preserving the level of service and the quality of life that the town residents and our customers are accustomed to, all while maintaining the town's financial viability. How do we always get there? We do conservative estimates of revenue, control spending, and better planning. It's easier to control what you're putting out there rather than what you're receiving. This year, as we're looking at the ad valorem rates and how much tax revenue we'd be collecting from the ad valorem rate, the staff is recommending maintaining the 3.7425 mils. That is consistent with what we increased it to in 2018, 2019. As you'll see, the 3.25 in 2015, 2016, that was due to the fact that we pulled out the fire assessment, and that's why it was so low. And so we do see a realize of a little over $200,000 in ad valorem revenue, and that's mostly for the estancia development. You can see how we compare to other jurisdictions surrounding us. And also, when you look at some of their ad valorem rates, they do have some hidden rates that are actually part of their ad valorem taxes as well. A lot of it is for debt services that they approve through a tax initiative. If you look at Eatonville and Orlando, you can see that they're pretty up there. Winter Garden did approve their 4.5, I believe, on last week, but they did approve the 4.5 mils for Winter Garden. So what we realized over between 1920 and 2021, as far as our overall valuation, we realized again about $32 million more than what we had in 1920 as far as value. When you look at millage rates, a lot of people are confused of how it's actually allocated and how it's done. What you do is you take your total value, you divide it into 1,000, which is your mills, then you multiply it by your millage rate, and then you do the 95% collection rate, which is going to get you the 2.74 or 2.704. Each and every year, you have to look at your rollback rate, meaning that what would your millage rate be to realize the same amount of money that you had the year prior. And if we were to do that, we'd have to do the rollback of 3.6305. The maximum millage rate that we would be 4.1221, and that would show an earnings of about $3 million. Some of the things that we are faced with this year, as everybody knows, sorry, I'm having to do a couple things at one time. With the various factors that may impact numerous revenue sources for the Town of Windermere, as we always do, we've been very conservative with the estimates. This year's no different. We typically use the past to predict the future. The problem is that we have something that nobody really would have been able to anticipate, and that is COVID-19. Prior to me releasing this report, the DOR did not come out with their numbers. They did come out with their numbers. They are lower than what staff has included in the revenue reports, but typically they're either lower, they're higher, but we mostly use the staff's estimates. And again, over the last 8 years, we've been pretty consistent with what's coming in. And right now, because we're not really diversified in our tax base, I don't think, and I'm predicting that we're not going to see as much of a hit as other jurisdictions would, because again, we don't have that diversification of tax base. All of our tax base is mostly built into residential. So when we get to the estimates of revenue, as you can see, we realized about $109,000 additional for the ad valorem. Local option gas tax, that's 1 year taxes that's going to continuously go down because cars are becoming more gas efficient. And I believe that number is at around what DOR came in at. It might be a little higher, but we're probably going to be realizing the 104 this year. So I am showing a decrease for next year. And with a lot of people working from home or out of work, again, that's going to show an additional hit. Utility tax, we will see an increase. And the reason for that is that, we have more homes built in town. In addition to that, you have more people that are staying at home for longer periods of time now, since you have the COVID, and you also have people learning, working, doing everything from home. Utility tax for water, again, we saw the increase in estancia. Communication service tax, that is one that has considerably increased this year and years past. So when you see the 250, 285, I think we're going to bring in about 325 this year. So again, we're being very conservative by estimating 285. So when people ask me about the difference between DOR numbers and the numbers that we're anticipating, still all of these numbers that are here are pretty conservative. So when they look at DOR numbers, they might say, well, you're probably about, $100,000 different than what DOR is estimating. But we're recapturing that throughout all of the estimates that we're doing right now. With franchise fees, with Duke, since we entered into that new agreement with Duke, we're going to be realizing about $3,500 more each month by entering into that agreement, and we're estimating about 287, so an increase in that. Code enforcement, that's just going to be an assessment on a tax assessment onto areas where we've had code enforcement issues. And then you also have the Willows MSTU fire assessment. We did go up the 3% COLA. So that's an additional $30,000 from last year. And then trying to see what the state and FERDAP grants. We do estimate on receiving some state grants, but not related to FERDAP. We haven't applied to any. And the reason that I'm showing a zero out is because we had to withdraw from the Fernwood FERDAP grant. Police off-duty, that's money in, money out, so that would offset as well if and when we start doing off-duty again. And then with the revenues that you see with tree board and HPB, that's all based on the fact that DVC is on hiatus right now, and then they're sharing the costs. HPB will be receiving the money from food trucks, and tree board will be receiving the money from farmers market. On a sad note, we did lose our farmers market coordinator, Cheryl Fiscal. She passed away last week, unfortunately, after a long battle of cancer. So our hearts and our thoughts and prayers go out to her and her family. We will be looking for a replacement shortly, and we'll be discussing that with the selection committee soon. Windermere Wine and Dine, I put in $200,000, but remember that's money in, money out. They are putting a hold on their event for this year. So if anybody was expecting money from Windermere Wine and Dine, please don't, because again, if they don't have their event this year, then they're not going to be able to be expending any funds that they haven't already committed to. And then interest, again, we show 15, but we typically realize more than that. And this decrease in rent, because we are losing out on the rent from Elizabeth Parsons, the Realty, Kaylee's Alterations, and Windermere's Counseling. So the total in revenue that we're going to be looking at for this fiscal year is about $6.327 million. And again, as I've indicated before, the local auction gas tax, again, it's getting more efficient. We've had utility taxes increase in new homes. Everything that I've pretty much went over already. And then for tree mitigation, again, we're not showing any monies realized in that, and that's based on the fact that the new legislation pretty much puts handcuffs on us to where we're not able to collect money for that unless they don't have a landscape architect or a arborist stating that they have a dead, diseased, or dying tree on their property. Is there any questions as it relates to estimated revenues for the fiscal year 2021? With that, no. Getting to projected expenditures. Again, the fire agreement's going 3% up, so it increased by $18,750. We have $94,000 for temporary facilities rental in the budget. We have $265,000 for the new facilities loan, $25,000 for the PNR CIP, and $152,000 for the master water utility plan. And these are all items that we committed to in fiscal year 18 and 19. So this money has been collecting since that time. So we're able to utilize matching funds and ensure that we have skin in the game for a lot of the projects that we want to get done in the upcoming years. And one thing to point out too is for the temporary facilities at $94,000. I had a question today about the money for the public works shed area that was not included in the original scope of work for the new facilities. That would be realized back in, so we would have a $100,000 delta that we would have to find for next fiscal year, and I'm confident we'd be able to do so. Legislative budget, pretty much the same as last year. The only real big difference is that $50,000 additional for the Wine and Dine event. And you can see that that's where the big one is. And then that's money in, money out. So there's really nothing different for that one. We are committing again $4,000 to the holiday social. Whether we have that again is determined upon what happens with COVID-19, and same with every other event that we have. And then legislative subscriptions, dues, and training, pretty much consistent with what we had for last year. Ethics training, again, is pretty, you can either do it on Florida League of Cities or the Tri-County League of Cities has a free event. Yeah, the additional 1,500 was for chamber events, if and when they start having those again. Any questions on the legislative budget? It does not include an increase in pay for any elected officials. Sorry, Bob, you're muted on that. So hopefully that we're.
You're not going to double. You're not going to double it for us.
Hey, I'll increase it by 100% right now. How about that?
Perfect.
Due to COVID, we're all taking a 50% cut,
Okay.
so we can chip in to help the community. That's how this works.
Deal.
Deal.
All right. So for the admin, again, is pretty standard. For me, we did include for communications for most of the town admin, emails, stuff that you would have seen in probably legislative, finance, or anybody else. We included it all into the admin. That includes website, the app, hosting, maintenance, so on and so forth. I did put in some money to save on legal because we have seen a significant decrease in the last couple of years for our legal team. We've seen less and less, knock on wood, lawsuits, but if we did get a lawsuit, they're usually covered by insurance, or it's just a letter exercise between two attorneys, then they go away. Other than that, again, just the communication increase because we consolidated various network devices, security and maintenance. And so the increase for the entire fiscal year for next year would be about $12,457. Nora and I have a meeting with our health insurance provider. We're looking at around $9,000 contribution per employee to maintain the existing employee-only benefit. But we're going to see if we can negotiate that down because we had Blue Cross, it's called Blue Shield now, which used to be BCBS. But they came in pretty strong with some good plans and hopefully some money that we can maybe discount. I didn't want to make a huge change in the healthcare, especially with the environment that we're in right now. Because that's just maybe giving it a double whammy. But I think we're going to have a heart-to-heart next year relative to the budget on how much the town wants to contribute to healthcare costs. We did explore self-insurance, but nobody wanted to touch us because of the amount of claims and the, hate to say it, some of the ages and some of the issues that we've had in the past with our current workforce. So we'll still continue to explore those options, but they just weren't there this year. But we are going to be having a meeting with Jack Richards on, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday.
Thursday.
Robert, Robert, how much was it per employee? You said $9,000?
$9,000.
Yeah.
Last year was $8,700.
Okay.
We've continuously seen increases each and every year, and we look at max out of pockets. Sorry, again, we look at max out of pockets, co-pays, try to finagle it every single way to try to get those costs down. But again, unfortunately, they haven't gone down. They've continuously gone up. Clerk budget, again, pretty much on point with what was there last year, just seen an increase about $3,800. But the professional services, which people have asked about, that's encryption, Unicode, records destruction, scanning, record searches, and the record search software, which is Square 9. Finance budget, again, pretty much everything on there is on point, just like there was for last fiscal year. You can see in general insurance that we did save a significant amount of money, and that is because we're not going to be insuring the old facilities. We also are putting in the money that we'll realize over what we spend for fire assessment, so we don't have to increase that assessment for a couple of years as long as this keeps increasing. And then this will go into a restricted reserve, so it'll cover off those payments. So we won't have to increase the fire assessment for a couple of years. So finance budget total amount over is about $30,000 from last year, and majority of that is the fire restricted reserve.
Okay.
Moving on, development services budget. Typically, we had professional services for planning and zoning. We've actually combined everything into one. And then that $25,000 that you see from last fiscal year, that was mostly money in, money out for people paying deposits and then getting that money back through those deposits. Building inspections, crazy enough, we've seen no drop in the building inspections. So it should actually be more than that, but I'm going to keep it at what it was for last fiscal year. So we do see 80% realization for spending money, and then we get 20% off the top for allowing that service to PDCS. Public works budget, you'll see that the largest stuff that we have in there is, we have the debt service for the new town facilities. Again, from last year to this year, that was mostly closing costs and attorney's fees. The debt service for Maine, which we have about 3 more years on. And then professional services, trying to remember what we cut on that one. I'll have to look at that again. Miscellaneous facility repairs, again, this will be in temporary facilities and we won't have the old facilities. There's not going to be a lot of repairs. Streets and roads, we cut out 10,500. I think that was for maybe some restriping, and then operating supplies went down. Rental and leasing, this 94,273 is for the majority of that is for the renting of the temporary facilities. The new public works facility that was not in the original scope is 192,500 for this fiscal year, and then 192,500 for next fiscal year. That was something that came up when we did the schematic design review. We realized that that was not a part of the original scope, was the back shed area. So we still maintain the $400,000 for the road CIP, and we are working on the RFQ as we speak for the pavement management plan, because it has to be updated every 5 years. Once we have that updated plan, then we can go ahead and reassess the existing CIP and where roads will be placed on the date and time. Sorry, here's the professional services. The 60,000 was for the water utility study. Because that'll be completed within this month. And you can see their operating costs. We have the same amounts for signage, pretty much everything. Shell, sand, and rock, we're going to see a decrease of about $5,000. And then also street and road sodding. And this is the barn area that we'll be adding to the back portion of the new town facilities. Again, that was something that was not included in the estimates, but we felt, again, number one, it was much needed if you've ever been in those facilities. and we want to rip the Band-Aid off once and not twice, in making sure that we get these things taken care of. But there's the rendering of the not temporary facilities, but the public works facility. So it's going to have bays. It's hard to see right here, but you'll have bays, and then you have storage, and then you have a washing area where we'll have an ice machine. Committed obligations, again, the 1819 tax increase. Again, we have the 25,000 for PNR CIP, 152 that goes to the water master plan, 130 to multimodal plan, $100,000 that goes to sidewalk repairs and extensions, and then $400,000 for the road improvement and repairs. Police department budget, again, with most of the salary increases, it was the max was 3%, and that's, again, we define that based on the COLA. So you're really not looking at a significant pay increases for staff members. Police off duty, we increased it by 5,000, but that's just, again, basing it off this last fiscal year. Typically the fall is the big time for our off duty, but depending upon how the COVID situation pans out, we'll see what happens. Incentive pay, those are the additional education points and disciplines that each of the officers have, whether they're firearms safety instructors, if they're an armory personnel, so on and so forth. They get stipends that are state mandated that we have to pay them. And then all the rest are just increases due to salary and fringe. Fire service fee, as you can see, that's the increase that we see from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. Questions that I did have was on rental and leasing, why did it go up the $19,958? It includes really one new car for this fiscal year, which will get rid of the gray SUV, then we'll be whole. But I did not include a payment for last fiscal year's budget that was approved for the car. So it's actually two cars, but we're actually only buying one for this fiscal year. And then the tasers, they have a lifespan on them, and we're gonna have to buy new cartridges, so on and so forth. And then $1,000 for the Axon body cameras. And so the total net increase is $84,176. And you can see with the operating costs, code enforcement pretty much stay the same. We just included additional monies for the communication. Boards and committees, again, the only difference really is the DBC and then the switch over to the tree board and HPB for the monies from the revenues from the farmer's market and the food truck. And I'm guessing based upon the numbers, these will probably drop down, but it's money in, money out, because whatever they don't spend, it goes to their reserves. Because, you know, with the farmer's market, yes, it works, but with the food truck event, we may have to postpone that until probably next year.
Yeah.
Contingency reserve, you can see, is pretty low, but we are balanced. We do have healthy reserves, which I'll get to. Where it shows here again, when we were looking at healthcare, so on and so forth, we did see, you know, a big hit to our revenues because of COVID. We have a lot of expenditures that we have for this fiscal year, but mostly the department heads and the staff have maintained a status quo, meaning that we are just going to skate by for this fiscal year. But if something were to happen, unfortunately, like a hurricane or something else, we do again have healthy reserves. They're currently at 1.13 million, which is 20%. And then again, our auditors have always said between 20 and 25% is healthy. And just like we do every single year, we're able to put monies into our reserves. And this fiscal year, we're probably looking at about 183. And that 183 would probably just offset that 193 for the public works 50% for the facility if we need to dip into our reserves for next fiscal year. But that gets us to about 21%. stormwater budget, again, you have your general fund, then you have your stormwater budget. So I had some questions about why, do we have workers' comp in here but not in the other departments? The workers' comp is part of the overall general insurance. But basically, it's all the money in, money out. And you can see what we have for projects for this fiscal year is about $154,000. But as you know, we are leveraging a lot of LMS funds. We received probably close to about $1.2 million over the last 2 fiscal years for ongoing projects like West 2nd Avenue. And then we're working with trying to get Butler and Bessie funded fully by LMS as well. So we do have some healthy reserves and hopefully be able to get a lot more projects done as we're in a status quo position or posture for this fiscal year because of the transfer into temporary facilities, then going back into our permanent facilities. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Robert. A couple quick questions that I have. Have we identified any additional holes that we can fill with potential flexibility in the next round of the HEALS Act, which may allow us to replace lost revenues? I don't know if we can do rental revenues and different things like that.
The only rental revenue that we would be able to claim would be that of the town hall, and that's minimal. And I don't think you can do special events as lost revenue either. So it would just be from the loss of rental of town hall, and that's probably looking at maybe $5,000.
Right. All right, just keep an eye out. There may be a few things as you're working through this that you guys see, because that was not originally part of the original CARES Act. We weren't allowed to do that. But it looks like that we will have some availability to do that. Again, we're not, if you have 1 million businesses that are helping to pay your taxes, then you're going to have a lot more room for that. We don't necessarily have that same level, so we can just keep an eye out to see what we have. I'm also thinking as those communication tax numbers get bigger, the legislature is going to be looking for funding this year because they're going to have a tough time with upcoming budget. So we'll keep our fingers crossed they don't come and want to fight against that again. I imagine that will again be a very attractive target.
Agreed. And Mayor, if I could, on that note too, it was asked of me today, a question was about, are we still going to be going after Department of Emergency Management for the 04 hurricane refunds? The problem that I see again is I don't think they're going to be approving any additional earmarks for appropriations for paying back municipalities for the 04 mistakes. I don't think this fiscal year. I'm not sure anybody's going to be willing to stick their neck out for that. So we may be having to lobby for that in a future budgetary session.
It will not make it any easier, that's for sure. I mean, things are going to be very, very, very tight. We had a really big state budget, and for our state anyways, and we're going to see significant shortfalls in that. So I think that's going to make things pretty interesting when the food fight starts. We've already seen some of that, but I think it's tip of the iceberg. So yeah, and then remember we had town hall evaluation structure, in prep for renovation, and I believe we paused on that. Do I recall correctly?
Yeah, it's $30,000 for us to do a full assessment. That's on pause for this fiscal year.
Okay. I would like to make sure we don't pause another year on that, only because there's some need there, and I want to make sure that we keep that building in as good a condition as we can. But I know that evaluation will probably come with a bigger ticket on the other side. So I don't mind pausing it for a bit. I just want to make sure it doesn't fall off the radar.
Yeah, this is where I had it, and then I removed it. But again, if revenues change in the mid-year report, we're able to allocate additional funds for that. So it's ready to go once we're ready to pay for it. Okay. So I did have a line item in here for that.
The only other question I had is, do we feel, And does council feel and does staff feel that doing the pavement management evaluation for $70,000 this year, is that going to be, is that a strategic move? Or is that something we may want to look at potentially delaying? But again, I'm looking for input in terms of what that is going to get us, other than prioritizing roadways for pavement, because we already have a pretty good idea of what our next ones are. So I'll leave it there, and if you guys could weigh in, that'd be great.
Your PMI, pavement management index, is through the roof. It's probably one that nobody can even come close to in the state of Florida, and that's because we don't have paved roads. But you may look at maybe a swap of maybe one project over another, mainly Lake Butler Boulevard. But yeah, that's $70,000 that we can put into the pot for maybe looking at some smaller projects that we can get done, or actually funding a full project for this fiscal year without that $70,000.
Yeah.
And I'll let Scott weigh in as well. But the other piece to this is it may be something that maybe we budget, but we hold until till the end of the fiscal year. So Scott, sorry, I didn't mean to take away your opportunity there, sir.
Oh, not at all. And I agree. I think we're holding pretty well with our pavement. Our PCI index is high. Like Robert says, we don't have many roads. You know, the worst one, Park Avenue, we took care of. That's going to last a long time. The rest of the roads are holding up. So I would agree, budget it and pause and foster later on in the year to see how they're holding up.
The other thing that I would, go ahead, sorry.
And that's a part of the 400,000 for road improvements and maintenance. So whether we don't do it or not, it's still part of that $400,000.
Sure. Totally understood. Just wondering, you know, depending on how tight we are, we could possibly use that as a chip. Now, in fairness and full disclosure, you know, there's another argument that says you do it right away. And that way, if we have a storm and those roads are damaged, we have before and after comparison, and are able to get FEMA to use PA funds to help us resurface those roads if they're damaged by, you know, debris and/or storm modifications or debris movement after the storm. So there's more than one way to think about it. So I'll just leave that out there for you guys to chew on.
May I ask, would it affect negotiations at all with Orange County, at least on the main roads, of having that management plan? Or
the management plan is only about the pavement condition. It has nothing to do with traffic, but the traffic is only part of the algorithm as far as how do you rank it. I think we have already documented and have well documented the issues that we have with Orange County and with the amount of traffic, especially for 6th Avenue and 12th and Chase.
So no value then?
Yeah. I wouldn't say there's much, you know, I would have to defer to Scott, but again, it just goes to the longevity of the pavement itself. And that one was done, I think, in 2013, 2014. So that's probably coming up in the next 6 years to get redone. And I think it's in pretty good condition, but for that southeast bump that never goes away.
Correct. It's all about trips per day and how they classify a road. Your additional numbers per day, volume per day will raise your classification, and that's what all that Orange County is about.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you weighing in. I mean, I think we can be strategic about it, but there is more than one way to do that. So, you know, you guys put your heads together and figure out what the best way to use that as a potential chip if we so need it.
Yes, sir.
Council, any questions for staff on the budget or comments? I see people shaking their head no. Okay, good. All right. I know you guys have reviewed it very well, and and as always, we appreciate the work that that staff does and Andy that you do on this. to get us to a place where we're able to, balance that budget out, meet the needs, always be looking at ways that we can improve, and trying to, manage costs as well. And we know that some costs escalate every year, and there's not a lot we can do about those. But I appreciate the effort and creativity and the thinking that goes into when to pay for what. So much appreciation there. And I know that the town residents also agree with that. I think that's evident by we only get a few for our budget hearings, because I think it's an area that we do pretty well in.
Sure.
All right. So seeing no questions from council, I'm going to open it up real quick. I see that a couple other folks have joined. I want to make sure that there's no public comment in terms of anything that anybody may want to add to our budget presentation workshop tonight. I see Frank on, and he's saying no. I see Mr. Kunkel on, and he can't nod because I can't see him. And I believe Mr. Kellogg's is on. And I see
Stephen Withers.
There's Stephen Withers up there. I knew you were up there somewhere, buddy. How are you? Any questions or comments, Stephen? Okay, good. All right. So at this point, I'm going to, basically what we're looking for is kind of a nod of concurrence with the direction that we're going. The fact that we will maintain our current millage rate, because we will have to set that at our next meeting.
Yes.
Am I getting that from council?
Yes.
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 Robert, do we need anything else this evening then?
No, at the August town council meeting, we'll go ahead and publicly announce the hearing dates in September. There's 2 of them. And if we did schedule another budget workshop, you can go ahead and mark those off your calendar.
Excellent. And that, again, that's the result of a lot of hard work and all you guys, all your participation, what was that word? Participation early on. That's a good one. Participation. I'm going to write that one down.
I like it.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Mayor, could I interject here? We've got a DRB meeting coming up in August. It's going to be full, yes, regarding the new
August 18th.
commercial building at 111 West 5th. And I think it would be a good DRB for all the council to listen into if they've got the time, because there's a lot of discussion, questions, and answers that occur during the DRB that don't get translated to or transmitted at the council meetings. So if you've got the time, please join us. And that was it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I would like to say, and thank you, Bill, for mentioning that. And I'd also like to say that I do listen to the recordings of the DRB meetings when I can't join them. And I appreciate very much the exchanges that happen during those meetings, because they're very informative and they help a lot, to the extent that the committee can be encouraged to be very detailed in their discussion. The longer they talk, the better for me, because I'm more informed. So I appreciate when those meetings run long. I know that not everyone might, but it's good knowledge to have. So thanks for the efforts that entire committee provides, and that you do too.
Yeah, and they do. And this particular meeting is a very critical issue, not just, for a single homeowner, but for the entire town. So I thought it would be appropriate for everyone to listen in.
Thank you.
On that note, once we go back live, are we working on any type of capabilities to video record? Because I concur it is quite helpful to be able to, go back and, watch the meeting live. And I would suspect that a lot of the residents would feel the same.
You can just keep using Zoom. I mean, we can record with Zoom as well. That way there's options. We may have to be in-person quorum, but it certainly serves as a mechanism to hear the meeting live. If that's something that folks are interested in.
Maybe it's a good idea for somebody to maybe sit down with Family Church, kind of see how they've done. They've done a great job of, shifting to, live recordings and things like that during the pandemic, and they're using YouTube and Facebook, and seemingly the technology there's not that much technology needed to be able to broadcast that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
using the Zoom, even though we're in person, you're going to get it out.
Yeah, it was when we first had Joe Foglia presented to town council, I was very apprehensive. And the reason for it was I would have to do what I'm doing right now, which is flipping through the videos, the agenda packets, and also keep an eye on the chat boxes and also the participants. But now that I've been doing it for the last 4 months, I'm comfortable with doing that, so we can take a look at what we can provide for the residents to take a look at, and recordings as well.
Yeah.
I think too, it may be an opportunity, Robert, to have someone else, do some of that, so
Yeah.
you're not distracted. Because I mean, and it's sometimes you can do it no problem, but other times if the discussion is more robust or more detailed, you need your mind on other things. We also want to be mindful of security, as we've had a couple examples of how not to do it, and the potential risk therein. So we want to broadcast only the things we want to broadcast. So, but we could also do a simple feed just that people can listen in, if that's the way we want to do it to start off.
And I think that's the way we go. Is it's closed to comment or anything of that nature, where it's just a broadcasted feed. Anybody that wants to make comment, do it the traditional way, either showing up at the meetings or sending email prior to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can lock the meeting right when it starts, so I can just have one person as the admin.
The other thing, I know as a community, we like to say we don't lock our doors and such, but I think, unfortunately, events have shown us that we should probably begin to spread the word that maybe is, not that we want to live in fear, but we also want to make sure that everybody is careful, mindful. And also, I think a lesson maybe that I know a lot of us seek to confront because we're wired that way. But I think, one of the lessons that we talked about in our house was, there's just some things there's only a couple things that are worth confronting over, and they all live inside the house. Just something to think about, and I don't have all the answers on that. Our heart goes out to everybody involved in that situation. And it's one of the tougher things I think that we've had to handle in a long time here in our community. So, but I do think, we should go ahead and spread the word to be a little extra cautious, and, maybe we can change a little bit of, you don't want to give up that feeling of security, but we also don't want to make it easy for any random thing to occur. And I, in a million years, if someone had said that would happen, I would never have thought that. And it takes everything to go just wrong for that to happen. But I do think that we can do our best to remind our neighbors to be careful and, choose your battles, and let the police do their job, and that's a big thing. I mean, I hate to reference the NextDoor stuff, but when you have someone who says, if you feel you need to get a weapon or a firearm to go across the street to tell somebody something, it's probably best that you call the police first and let them handle that. Save those other last resort measures for protecting what's near and dear inside your house. So, any other items from council or staff?
We had our projects meeting this morning, so be getting those notes tomorrow. And there'll be an update on all the various things I've been working on. I'm going to be setting up some virtual workshops with residents as it relates to Bessie, Butler, and West 2nd Avenue. I want to make sure that we get their projects continuously going because of the LMS funding. Ways will be meeting on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Because we need to start with the transition from the graduates to the new group that's coming in. If you've seen Chief's Facebook pages and social media, the foundation was involved in the Random Acts of Kindness, which was support of Michael Callan, who was a OCSO motor deputy that passed away several years ago and worked for actually Chief Ogden. So the foundation was honored to participate in that. In addition to that, the foundation recently received $10,000 from the Wounded Officer Initiative. They've actually disbanded, so we were able to receive some of their funds as well. And we did give donations to the two Lake County sheriff's officers that passed away from COVID over the last month. So foundation-wise, we're doing a lot and also trying to spread some joy during these troubled times. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Council, anything further? Staff? All right, seeing nothing, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 6:51 p.m. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys at our next town council meeting. And have a great night.
Good job. Thank
You too.
Great job, guys.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
you, Robert.
You.